Hello, everybody. In Chapter 5, we're going to be talking about e-commerce security and payment systems. So the e-commerce security environment, so the overall scope of the problem, so the overall size and losses due to cyber crime are unclear at this point. McAfee in the Center for Strategic and International Studies study they had a global economic impact of cybercrime and cyber espionage between $455 billion and $600 billion. So a lot of money is being lost through cybercrime. Reports by security product providers indicate increasing cybercrime, which is really no surprise to anybody. And then online credit card fraud is one of the most high profile forms of cybercrime. And then underground economy marketplaces sell stolen information, malware, and more. So this is something that I see pretty much on a daily basis. I'm working in a financial institution, just with individuals that are buying stolen identities online, trying to pass them off on their own. Say we just actually had somebody get arrested within the last couple of weeks who had bought an identity online and was trying to get a loan through SafeQ. So turned into being a very big thing, and it's just not uncommon kind of in my line of business. So pretty much any financial institution, big or small, is dealing with this sort of thing right now. So what is good e-commerce security? So to achieve the highest degree of security, you need to have new technologies, organizational policies and procedures, and then industry standards and government laws. you know, as far as technology goes, it's changing every day, and fraudsters are keeping up with those technologies. So it's really important that financial institutions have kind of the leading technologies whenever it comes to combating financial securities. And then some of the other factors involved with it. So, time value of money, cost of security versus potential loss, and then security often breaks at weakest link. A lot of times, what you'll have is, organization won't put as much money into their overall security just because, if they do get hacked, they might end up losing less money than if they were to invest in a new security system for their online resources. So it's just kind of weighing, the outcomes of it. And then when you do run into those situations, then it becomes more of like an ethical situation on, are you okay with having your, information stolen at that point? Do you have any, customers' information that could be stolen, and kind of going on with that. And then we'll kind of go over with a couple examples here through this chapter. So the tension between security and other values. So the overall ease of use. The more security measures added, the more difficult a site is to use, and the slower it becomes. And then you've got public safety and criminal use of the internet. So use of technology by criminals to plan crimes or threaten nation state. So this is a really good graph of just kind of a typical e-commerce transaction. So at the top you've got the customer credit card bank going to the merchant bank, and then just kind of how it goes between you've got your online store, your database server, going between the warehouse, shipping, online consumer, and then also your internet or service provider. And then this next one, it kind of shows the different parts that have vulnerabilities throughout it. So you've got security breaches. When I cover whenever it comes to your merchant bank and customer credit card bank, they could hack one of the systems. As far as customer hack list, you've got shipping, Wi-Fi listening, wiretap. So there's just many different ways that fraudsters can get your credit card information or your personal information, other information within the organization. So it does involve a lot of resources to make sure that kind of everything is up to code for their own security protection. So some potentially unwanted programs. So you got browser parasites, which monitor and change a user's browsers. You've got adware, which you use to call pop-up ads, and then spyware, which tracks users' keystrokes, emails, IMs, and etc. So most of you have probably heard about all three of these, and like I said at the beginning of this chapter, these are becoming just more and more common. You also have phishing, which can be any deceptive online attempt by a third party to obtain confidential information for financial gain. Some of the tactics with that is social engineering, email scams, and BEC phishing, and then spear phishing. This is used for identity fraud and theft. I know with financial institutions, phishing is a very common problem, just because somebody from an outside source can send like an email. It can be disguised as coming from an internal source, and then they'll say, oh, click on this link to upload this file or whatever. They click on the link, and then fraudsters are able to get into the computer system, and then get into the files, get any information that they want at that point. So phishing is definitely a very big thing. It seems like, especially in the financial industry, we hear about phishing scams, almost on a monthly basis at this point, where one institution has some sort of phishing problem. Data breaches, which is a very big thing in the news these days. So these are organization loses control over corporate information to outsiders. There are over 1,500 breaches in 2017, and that's a 45% increase over 2016. Yahoo and Equifax, two of the most notorious. We're going to talk about the Equifax one here in just a second. And then Facebook breach in 2018 exposed personal information of $30 million, or not $30 million, 30 million people. And the Facebook one, that actually led to me deleting Facebook. It got to the point where I was just kind of sick of Facebook anyway, just from the negativity that's constantly out there. And then after the breach in 2018, I had just had enough of just the negative press surrounding Facebook, what was kind of bringing into my personal life, and I just said enough. I'm just going to cut ties with it altogether. And I feel like a lot of people kind of felt the same way as me. Their numbers have fallen since then, and kind of seems like since mid 2018, they've had very bad reputation within the news. So some of the leading causes associated with data breaches, you've got hacking, unauthorized access, and then you've got employee error, and then also negligence. So one of the big things is just having strong passwords. I mean, that can play a huge role, where if your password is password, or just 1 2 3 4, something like that. I mean, that comes down to like social engineering, and just making sure that you have those strong passwords put into place. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people have such easy passwords where you can just kind of guess, and then somebody's able to hack into a system based on that password. So as far as Equifax goes, there's a really good write-up about Equifax in Chapter 5. I highly recommend everybody read it, along with the Chapter 5 reading this week. So, what organizational and technological failures led to the data breach at Equifax? And then has, any of you, or do you know anybody experienced a data breach? As far as the organizational and technological failures that led to the data breach at Equifax, it talks about it in your book about how there was an error in the system, and then after doing some research, that they found out that Apache was at fault with it. But then Apache came back later on and said, we put a fix into place. You just had to implement it at that point. And then Equifax started doing a little more digging, and then they found out that there was a fix put into place, but it came down to one person, and that one person didn't do their job. When it comes down to one person, that pretty much just kind of tells me that that's just a fall person in that situation, and you're just kind of making stuff up at that point. So if you do have one person that that's responsible for that, I just have a really hard time believing that, especially for an organization as big as Equifax. What if that person was on vacation? What if they were away from their desk for an extended period of time? Who is the backup person in that situation? Who's that person reporting to? So whenever you start to kind of look around and think your way through it, it shouldn't just come down on one person. It should be an entire team, an entire department that's really at fault here to make sure that that one person was doing their job. I mean, if you want to say one person failed at their job, then what happened to the one person that they were reporting to? It's kind of on them as well to make sure that they're doing their job and getting things done correctly. So overall, I think Equifax just kind of had a major failure on it. Was making up a lot of excuses for it. So from an organizational standpoint, I just feel like they just had really poor leadership and just weren't doing their job. As far as the technological failures, you might be able to blame some of it on Apache, but I think overall, it still comes down to Equifax, just because they put a fix into place, but they just didn't upload it and actually implement it at that point. And then have you ever, or anyone experienced a data breach? I have not personally known anybody that's gone through a data breach. It is a pretty common thing with financial institutions, especially like when the Equifax one came out. A lot of people, came in kind of asking about it. And, asked FQ, was there information? Perfectly fine and everything. And, we don't do a whole lot with Equifax. We, deal primarily through TransUnion. So, it didn't affect us directly, but at the same time, a lot of financial institutions do a lot with Equifax. So, a lot of their credit card information, their social security number, bank account numbers, home addresses, all of that was kind of exposed out there on the internet, and then cyber criminals can go out there, they can purchase that information, and then they can use that information to obtain loans online, credit cards online, rack up a bunch of debt for that individual, and then kind of comes back on that individual. So overall, the Equifax thing was such a huge mess, and people are still kind of seeing the effects of it still today. So credit card fraud and theft. So stolen credit card incidents is about 9.9% on the web, and about 0.8 of mobile transactions. And then you got hacking and looting of corporate servers is a primary cause of that. And then central security issues, so establishing customer identity. So you've got e-signatures, multi-factor authentication, and then fingerprint identification. So fingerprint, or even if you're using like an iPhone and it has the facial recognition, the multi-factor authentication. If you are signing into something, maybe they're going to send you like a code or something. And then also e-signatures, as well. So a lot of things have been put in place to try to curb a lot of the theft associated with it, but by no means is it stopping anytime soon. Some of the identity fraud and theft, so unauthorized use of another person's personal data for illegal and financial benefit. So this might include social security number, driver's license, credit card numbers, and then usernames and also passwords. So in 2017, almost 17 million U.S. consumers suffered identity fraud. Like I've said, it's something that I see on a daily basis. It's never an easy conversation to have with somebody over it. Kind of the sad thing that's come out of it is it is easy to bounce back just because it has happened so much. To where if you are able to provide factual information, you still can provide proof to financial institutions that your identity got stolen at that point. It is a lot of work to go through at that point, and I definitely feel sorry for the individuals that have had to go through it. But at the same time, it is a more common thing these days, to where somebody can bounce back from it. So, spoofing, farming, and spam websites. So spoofing, that's going to be the attempting to hide true identity by using someone else's email or IP address. You got the farming, which is automatically redirecting a URL to a different address to benefit the hacker. And then you got spam junk websites, which offer a collection of advertisements for other sites, which may contain malicious code. So most of us, or all of us, have probably got some sort of spam email or junk email in the past. So definitely make sure you're not clicking on the links associated with those emails. So you've got a sniffer here, which is an eavesdropping program monitoring networks. This can identify network trouble spots and can be used by criminals to steal proprietary information. Then you've got email wiretaps, which is recording emails at the mail server level. And then man-in-the-middle attack, which is an attacker intercepts and changes communication between two parties who believe they are communicating directly. Denial of service and distributed denial of service attacks. So the denial of service, or DOS attack, this is going to be flooding a website with pings and page requests, overwhelm and could shut down the web's servers, and then often accompanied by blackmail attempts, and then or also botnets. And then for the DDoS attack, this is going to be using hundreds or thousands of computers to attack target networks, and can use devices from Internet of Things and then also mobile devices. And then you also have DDoS smoke screening. So all of these are very sophisticated ways of going about it. But if you do have somebody who's well versed in hacking, they can get with a couple different people and accomplish a lot of these things. And that's why it's usually not just one person. It's usually a team of people that are trying to do these sort of things. So insider attacks. So the largest threat to business institutions come from insider embezzlement, which is is still a very big thing today, even with so many government regulations put into place, and a lot of checks and balances that corporations put into place. People are still getting away with embezzlement. So employee access to privileged information. If you do have access to somebody's social security number, bank account information, anything like that, whenever you might have access to it, it can be tempting for some individuals to kind of steal that information and use it as their own. You might have poor security procedures put in place, and then insiders more likely to be a source of cyber attacks than outsiders, just because they can see the flaws within the system and kind of figure out how to get around the system and take advantage of it without being caught for extended period of time. Social network security issues. So social networks, an environment for viruses, site takeovers, identity fraud, malware, loaded apps, click hijacking, and then also phishing and spam. We've probably all seen social media sites or social media pages that are definitely fraudulent, and you know it from the moment that you look at it. You've got manual sharing scams, which are sharing of files that link to malicious sites, and then fake offerings or fake like buttons and fake apps. Anything to do with social media. That's what I think it was Instagram or Twitter that came out here just recently and said they removed millions of fake accounts that were fraudulent or had some sort of malware associated with it. So it is a huge thing with social media. So a couple of things here as far as protecting your website. So you do have encryption, which transforms data into ciphertext or readable only by sender and receiver. This secures stored information and information transmission. This provides 4 of C key dimensions of e-commerce security. Those include message integrity, non-reputation, authentication, and then also confidentiality. We've got firewalls, which are hardware or software that uses security policy to filter packets, and then also next generation firewalls. Proxy servers, which is just software servers that handle all communications from or sent to the internet. You've got intrusion detection systems. If there is any sort of intrusion, it's going to make sure that it sends an alert, and then also intrusion prevention systems. So operating system security enhancements, just making sure you're doing upgrades on the systems, making sure those patches go through, kind of like what we were talking about with the Equifax and Apache. Antivirus software, so this is the easiest and least expensive way to prevent threats to system integrity, and it requires daily updates. So if you are working for a corporation, they have antivirus software available. If you are getting ready to start a company or website or anything, make sure that you invest heavily into antivirus software or some sort of firewall or something. So some management policies, business procedures and public law. So worldwide, companies spend more than $86 billion on security hardware, software, and services. So managing risk includes, the technology associated with it, effective management policies, and then public laws and active enforcement of everything. So from a management policy, so you've got risk assessment, make sure that you're within a good risk kind of guidelines. You've got security policy, implementation plan, so security organization, access controls, authentication procedures, including biometrics, authorization policies, authorization management systems, and then also a security audit. So making sure that you're going through, whether it be monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, and making sure that that audit is taking place and making sure that all your security procedures are up to date. So for e-commerce payment systems, in the U.S., credit and debit cards are primarily online payment methods. Other countries have different systems, so online credit card purchasing cycles, credit card to e-commerce enablers, and then limitations of online credit card payments. So, security, also have merchant risk associated with it, the cost associated, and then also social equity with it. Alternative online payment systems, so online stored value systems. So you got backed on value stored in a consumer's bank, checking or credit card account. So an example of that would be PayPal. Even with PayPal, there is risk associated with it. I actually had my PayPal account hacked. It's probably been about 10 years ago now, but definitely not a fun thing to do. And luckily they didn't get away with much money, and then PayPal was actually able to, reimburse me on it. But those things, do happen. And then you've got also, other alternatives to that. So you've got Amazon Pay, Visa Checkout, Mastercard's MasterPass, and then also Dwolla. So Amazon Pay is probably one that I use the most out of those, just because I might, be using, a website, and then they do have the, ability to pay with Amazon Pay, and I'll go with that one just because I know, Amazon Pay, for right now anyways, is a secure way of paying at that point, and then I know they have good protection for the time being, anyways. So some of the mobile payment systems, so use of mobile phones as payment devices. So this was established in Europe and Asia, and then it's slowly expanded here in the United States. So near field communications with that. So you got different types of mobile wallets, such as universal proximity mobile wallets, such as Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, PayPal Mobile. So this is standing right next to a device, having your cell phone right there, and then paying within a couple of feet of it. You've got branded store proximity wallets offered by Walmart, Target, Starbucks, and others. And then you got peer-to-peer mobile payment apps such as Zelle or Venmo, which Venmo is one that I use primarily. Blockchain, this enables organizations to create and verify transactions nearly instantaneously using a distributed peer-to-peer database. The benefits with that, so it reduces costs of verifying users, validating transactions, and risk of storing and processing transaction information. Transactions cannot be altered retroactively and therefore are more secure. So foundation technology for cryptocurrencies and supply chain management, as well as potential applications in financial services and healthcare industries. Cryptocurrencies, so this used blockchain technology and cryptography to create a purely digital medium of exchange. So Bitcoin, the most prominent example. So the value of Bitcoin have widely fluctuated. Major issues with theft and fraud. And some governments have banned Bitcoin, although it is gaining acceptance here in the United States. Overall, Bitcoin is just one of those things that I don't think it's going to catch on just because it's not government regulated as of right now, and I don't think it's ever going to become government regulated. The one big thing that I have, against cryptocurrencies is how you can, mine them essentially out of nothing. There's nothing backing those cryptocurrencies. At least, here in the United States, with the currency that we have, it's backed by gold here in the United States. But with cryptocurrencies, it's just kind of a made-up thing. So. In reality, what's the difference between Bitcoin and a Pokemon trading card? It just doesn't really have any value to anything. So people can say what they want about it. Right now Bitcoin still does have some pretty good value of it, but just it says here value of Bitcoins have widely fluctuated. I've seen a lot of people who have cashed in their Bitcoin and made like a pretty good profit off of it. But I think overall it's just not very sustainable. So other cryptocurrencies include Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, and then Monero, and then also initial coin offerings or ICOs being used by some startups to raise capital. So interested to see kind of where cryptocurrencies go in the future. Coming from a financial institution standpoint, I don't think they're going to go very far. I think it's just kind of a pie in the sky idea at this point. But I could be proven wrong. You never know. So electronic billing presentment and payment. So this is going to be online payment system for monthly bills. So for EBPP business model, so online banking model, which is the most widely used for that. So maybe you do something like bill pay, which is going to be your bill direct. And then you've got mobile and then consolidator. All models are supported by EBPP infrastructure providers. So that's all I've got for Chapter 5. We will see you next time in Chapter 6.